The gunshot that severed Willow Crawford's veil echoed through the small wooden church, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, not on her wedding day, not in Angels Camp, California, where she'd pinned all her hopes for a respectable life in 1875. Blood splattered across her white dress as her groom, Thomas Bennett, crumpled before her, his chest blooming crimson from the bullet wound that had claimed his life mere seconds before he could say, "I do." Willow stood frozen at the altar, her hazel eyes wide with horror as pandemonium erupted around her. Women screamed and men shouted, rushing toward the doors. The minister dropped to his knees beside Thomas, frantically checking for signs of life, but Willow already knew. The vacant stare in Thomas's eyes told her everything. "Someone get the sheriff," a voice called out amid the chaos. The church doors burst open as several men raced outside, searching for the shooter. Willow remained motionless, her bouquet of wildflowers slipping from her trembling fingers to land beside Thomas's outstretched hand. "Miss Crawford," the minister said gently, touching her elbow, "you should come away from here." But Willow couldn't move. This man, this kind, gentle shopkeeper, who had offered her security and respectability after her father's death, left her penniless, was gone. Not that she had loved him passionately, but she had respected him, had been grateful for his proposal when no other options remained for a 23-year-old woman alone in the West. Willow, Mrs. Peterson, the shopkeeper's wife, approached cautiously. "Come with me, dear. This is no sight for you." Finally, Willow allowed herself to be led away from the altar, her mind still not fully comprehending what had happened. They guided her to a small antechamber at the back of the church where she sank onto a wooden chair, staring blankly at the bloodstains on her dress. "Who would do such a thing?" Mrs. Peterson whispered, dabbing at Willow's face with a handkerchief. Thomas never harmed a soul. Willow knew who might have done it. The thought came to her suddenly, sickeningly. She remembered the threats, the warnings Thomas had received in the weeks leading up to the wedding. Something about debts and gambling matters he'd assured her were misunderstandings, nothing to worry about. Sheriff Daniels entered the room, his weathered face grim beneath his silver-streaked mustache. "Miss Crawford, I'm sorry about what happened. I'll need to ask you some questions when you're feeling up to it." "I need air," Willow said suddenly, standing up. The room was closing in around her, and the sympathetic glances felt suffocating. Of course, but the sheriff began. "Please, just give me a moment." Willow moved past him, ignoring the concerned murmurs that followed her. She couldn't bear to look at the altar as she walked down the aisle, her eyes fixed on the church doors ahead. Outside, a crowd had gathered, their voices hushed as she emerged. Willow kept walking, her steps increasingly determined as she moved past the churchyard gate. Miss Crawford." Voices called after her, but she didn't turn back. The white dress was a beacon in the afternoon sun as she walked away from the church alone, her veil now hanging in tatters around her shoulders. She had no destination in mind, only the desperate need to escape the sympathetic gazes and horrified whispers. Willow had reached the edge of town when she heard hoofbeats approaching. She didn't turn, expecting it to be the sheriff or one of the townspeople come to bring her back. "Miss." A deep voice called out, unfamiliar and cautious. She stopped then, turning to face a tall man astride a chestnut mare. He wasn't from Angels Camp, she would have remembered him. His face was sun-bronzed beneath the wide brim of his hat, with eyes the color of a summer storm and a strong jawline softened by concern. Dust covered his leather vest and denim pants, suggesting he'd been riding hard. "Are you all right, madam?" he asked, dismounting in one fluid motion. He kept a respectful distance, seeming to understand that a woman in a blood-stained wedding dress might be wary of strangers. "No," Willow answered honestly, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'm not." The man nodded as if this was the most natural response in the world. "Name's Nathan Xavier," he said. "I was riding into town when I saw you walking out here alone, thought maybe you needed help." "My fiancé was just murdered at our wedding," Willow said flatly, the words sounding unreal even as she spoke them. "So unless you can bring back the dead, Mr. Xavier, I don't think anyone can help me." Nathan's eyes widened slightly, but he didn't back away as most men might have at such bluntness from a woman. "I can't do that," he said quietly. "But I can offer you a safe place to sit and catch your breath before facing whatever's waiting back there." He gestured toward a cluster of oak trees just off the road. Willow hesitated. Everything she knew about propriety told her to refuse, to return to town and the protection of people she knew. But those same people would smother her with pity, press her with questions she couldn't answer, and eventually remind her that a woman alone had few options in a town like Angel's Camp. "Just for a moment," she agreed, and followed as Nathan led his horse toward the trees. He helped her settle on a fallen log, then loosened his horse's saddle and retrieved a canteen. "Water," he offered. Willow accepted it gratefully, suddenly aware of how dry her throat had become. "Thank you." Nathan crouched a few feet away, giving her space. "I don't mean to pry, miss." "Crawford, Willow Crawford, Miss Crawford. But does the sheriff know who did it?" "They're looking," Willow said, staring at the blood on her dress. "But I think I might know who's responsible." She surprised herself by continuing, "Thomas, my fiancé, had been receiving threats. He said it was nothing, but I overheard him arguing with someone last week about money. A lot of money." Nathan nodded slowly. "Gambling debts, I think so. He owned the general store in town, but business hasn't been good since the mine started laying men off." She looked up at him, suddenly suspicious. "You're not from around here. What brings you to Angel's Camp?" A shadow crossed Nathan's face. "I've been tracking someone, a man named Victor Holloway." The name made Willow's blood run cold. "Vic Holloway, the man who runs the saloon on the edge of town." "You know him. Everyone knows him. He owns half the businesses in Angel's Camp, or at least has a stake in them." Willow's mind raced. "Thomas borrowed money from him last year when the store was struggling. He said he'd paid it all back, but maybe he hadn't," Nathan finished grimly. "Holloway's not known for his patience with debtors." "You're after him for a debt too?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "No, he killed my brother 6 months ago in Sacramento, shot him in the back over a card game." Willow felt a chill despite the warm spring air. "And you think he's here?" "In Angel's Camp. I know he is. Been tracking him for months." Nathan's eyes met hers. "Miss Crawford, if Holloway's behind what happened today, you're in danger." "Me? Why would he? To tie up loose ends. If your fiancé owed him money and you know about it, you're a witness." Fear crept up Willow's spine. "What am I supposed to do? I have nowhere to go. My father died last winter and I have no family left." Nathan was quiet for a moment, considering. "I need to find Holloway and bring him to justice. You need protection." He stood, dusting off his pants. "I think we might be able to help each other." "What are you suggesting, Mr. Xavier?" Willow asked cautiously. "Come with me to my camp outside town. It's safe and Holloway won't know to look for you there. Once you've had time to think, you can decide what to do next." Everything Willow had been taught warned against trusting a stranger, especially a man with vengeance in his eyes. But something about Nathan Xavier's straightforward manner gave her pause. He hadn't offered false comfort or empty platitudes. He'd simply offered shelter and protection when she needed it most. "I should let someone know I'm safe," she said finally. "Mrs. Peterson or the sheriff sending word to anyone right now could lead Holloway straight to you," Nathan countered. "Give it one night. By morning, we'll have a clearer plan." Willow looked back toward town, where smoke rose from chimneys and the church bell had begun to toll, no doubt for Thomas. Returning meant facing questions she couldn't answer and dangers she didn't fully understand. "One night," she agreed, rising to her feet. "And then I decide what happens next." Nathan nodded, leading his horse back toward the road. "My camp's about an hour's ride from here. Can you manage on horseback in that dress?" Willow looked down at the ruined wedding gown, a bitter smile touching her lips. "Mr. Xavier, after what happened today, riding a horse in a wedding dress seems like the least of my concerns." He helped her mount, his hands respectfully steady at her waist, then swung up behind her. As they rode away from Angel's Camp, Willow couldn't shake the feeling that she was leaving behind more than just a tragic day. She was leaving behind the life she'd thought she would have. "You ever fired a gun, Miss Crawford?" Nathan asked as they rode. "My father taught me," she answered. "Said a woman alone in the West should know how to protect herself." "Smart man, your father." "Yes," Willow said softly. "He was." They rode in silence after that, the rhythm of the horses' hooves marking the beginning of a journey neither of them had planned. Nathan's camp was nestled in a small clearing beside a creek, sheltered by cottonwood trees and hidden from the main trail. A simple lean-to provided shelter, and a fire pit surrounded by stones showed where he'd been cooking his meals. "It's not much," he said, helping Willow dismount, "but it's secure." Willow looked around, grateful for the peaceful setting after the chaos of the day. "It's perfect." Nathan busied himself caring for his horse while Willow settled on a log by the cold fire pit. The reality of her situation was beginning to sink in. She was alone in the wilderness with a man she'd just met, fleeing a town where her fiancé had been murdered hours earlier. "Mr. Xavier," she began as he returned with an armful of kindling, "you mentioned your brother. Were you close?" Nathan's hands stilled briefly before resuming their work building the fire. "William was all the family I had left. Our parents died of fever when I was 16, he was 19. We ran the family ranch together near Stockton for years." "I'm sorry for your loss," Willow said softly. "As I am for yours." Nathan struck a match, the flame catching quickly in the dry tinder. "Were you in love with him, your fiancé?" The question surprised her with its directness. "No," she admitted, the first time she'd spoken the truth aloud. "Thomas was kind and respectable. After my father died, he offered marriage as a solution to my circumstances, and you accepted. What choice did I have? A woman alone has few options that don't lead to ruin or starvation." Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. The West isn't kind to those without protectors. As darkness fell, Nathan prepared a simple meal of beans and jerky, apologizing for the fare. "I've eaten far worse," Willow assured him, grateful for the hot food. They ate in companionable silence, the crackling fire and distant crickets song the only sounds in the gathering night. Afterward, Nathan disappeared briefly into the woods, returning with a bundle of cloth. "Found these at a trading post last week," he said, holding out a set of simple women's clothes: a brown skirt, white blouse, and woolen shawl. "They're not fancy, but they're clean. Thought you might want to change out of." He gestured vaguely at her blood-stained wedding dress. Willow took the bundle, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you, but why did you have women's clothing?" A sad smile crossed his face. "Intended to bring them to a friend in the next town. Her daughter's about your size." Something in his tone told her not to press further. She retreated behind the lean-to to change, relieved to shed the wedding dress that had become a grim reminder of the day's events. When she returned, she carried the white gown bundled in her arms. "We should burn it," she said decisively. "If anyone's looking for me, a blood-stained wedding dress would be easy to track." Nathan raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. He took the dress from her hands and fed it piece by piece into the flames. Willow watched her abandoned dreams turn to ash, feeling strangely liberated. "You should rest," Nathan said once the dress was consumed. "Take the lean-to, I'll sleep by the fire." "Mr. Xavier," Willow began, but he interrupted her. "Nathan. If we're going to be traveling together, might as well use first names." "Nathan," she amended. "You mentioned bringing Holloway to justice. What exactly do you plan to do when you find him?" His eyes reflected the firelight, hard and determined. "I'm bringing him to the law in Sacramento. There's a warrant for his arrest and witnesses who saw him kill William. Not revenge, then?" "I won't lie and say I haven't thought about it," Nathan admitted. "But my brother believed in the law, even out here where it sometimes seems like suggestions more than rules. I owe it to his memory to do this right." Willow studied him in the flickering light. "And what about me? If Holloway is behind Thomas's murder, I'm a witness, which makes you valuable to the law and dangerous to Holloway." Nathan added another log to the fire. "Tomorrow, we'll head to Sacramento together. You can give your statement to the marshal there, and I'll see about getting Holloway arrested. And after that," Nathan looked up, meeting her gaze. "That's for you to decide, Willow. I'm not in the business of telling women what to do with their lives." The words, so different from what she was accustomed to hearing, brought an unexpected warmth to Willow's chest. "Thank you for that," she said quietly. "Good night, Nathan." "Good night, Willow. Sleep well." As she settled onto the bedroll inside the lean-to, Willow realized this was the first time in years she'd fallen asleep with no one dictating her future. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Dawn broke with a chorus of birdsong, rousing Willow from a surprisingly deep sleep. For a moment, she was disoriented, the unfamiliar surroundings confusing her until memories of the previous day came flooding back. She sat up quickly, pushing aside the blanket Nathan must have draped over her during the night. Outside, she found him already awake, tending to a small fire where coffee brewed in a battered pot. He looked up as she emerged, a hint of concern in his eyes. "How'd you sleep?" he asked, pouring steaming coffee into a tin cup. "Better than I would have expected," Willow admitted, accepting the cup gratefully. "Thank you for the blanket." Nathan nodded, returning his attention to preparing a breakfast of hardtack and dried apples. "We should head out soon. It's about 3 days' ride to Sacramento if we push hard." 3 days, Willow repeated, the reality of their journey sinking in. "Nathan, what if Holloway's men come looking for us?" "They might," he acknowledged. "But I've been tracking men like Holloway for months. I know how to stay off the main trails and cover our tracks." Willow sipped her coffee, contemplating. "You're good at this, tracking, surviving in the wilderness. Were you always a—" She hesitated, unsure of the right word. "Bounty hunter," Nathan supplied with a wry smile. "No, I was a rancher, like my father before me. Only started tracking men after William was killed. Turns out I have a knack for it." "And after Holloway, will you go back to ranching?" Something like uncertainty flickered across Nathan's face. "Haven't thought that far ahead," he admitted. "The ranch is there, being managed by our foreman." "I suppose I could." They finished breakfast in companionable silence, then quickly broke camp. Nathan taught Willow how to erase signs of their presence, scattering the fire ashes and brushing away footprints. "We'll avoid the main roads," he explained as they mounted his horse. "Might take longer, but it's safer." Willow held tight to the saddle horn as Nathan urged the horse forward, their journey officially beginning. The morning air was crisp, the scent of pine and earth filling her lungs as they rode through scattered woodland. For all the danger and uncertainty ahead, Willow felt strangely at peace. Perhaps it was the shock of yesterday's events, or perhaps it was the solid presence of the man behind her, but she found herself more curious than afraid about what lay ahead. "Tell me about Sacramento," she said after they'd been riding for an hour. "Is it very different from Angel's Camp?" Nathan chuckled, the sound reverberating against her back. "Like comparing a wildcat to a house cat." "Sacramento's growing fast, buildings going up everywhere, people from all over pouring in. It's the capital now, so there are politicians and businessmen mingling with miners and farmers." "It sounds overwhelming." "Can be," he agreed, "but there are opportunities there too." For a woman with skills and determination. Willow hadn't thought that far ahead. What would she do once this was over? She had some education, her father had insisted on it, and could read, write, and keep accounts better than many men. "I was helping Thomas with the books at the store," she mused aloud. "I'm good with numbers." "That's valuable. Banks, shipping companies, government offices, they all need clerks who can handle figures." Nathan's voice held no condescension, only matter-of-fact assessment. "A woman clerk. I've never heard of such a thing." "Times are changing, Willow. The West is still being shaped. Why shouldn't women have a hand in shaping it?" The notion was radical, yet appealing. Willow had always chafed at the limited options available to women, especially those without family or fortune to support them. The idea of earning her own living, making her own decisions without needing a husband's permission, was intoxicating. "My father would have liked you," she said suddenly. "He always said I was born with too much spirit for conventional life." Nathan laughed again, the sound warming her. "Sounds like a wise man." "He was. He came west during the gold rush of '49, brought me with him after my mother died. I was just a baby then." Willow smiled at the memories. "He never struck it rich, but he did well enough prospecting to buy a small claim. Taught me everything he knew about mining, much to the scandal of the town ladies." "Is that right? You can identify promising ore veins and such." "I can. And pan for gold better than most men twice my size," Willow said proudly. "Father said I had an eye for it." "Impressive," Nathan said, and she could hear the genuine admiration in his voice. "That's not knowledge many women possess." Their conversation flowed easily as the miles passed beneath the horses' hooves. Nathan shared stories of his ranching days, of the herd of cattle he and William had built up over the years, and the dreams they'd had to expand. Willow told him about her childhood in mining camps, about learning to shoot and ride alongside her father's lessons in literature and mathematics. By midday, when they stopped to rest the horse and eat a simple lunch, Willow realized she felt more comfortable with Nathan than she ever had with Thomas in their months of courtship. There was something refreshingly honest about him. He spoke to her as an equal, valued her thoughts and knowledge, and never once suggested she should leave the planning or decision-making to him. "We're making good time," Nathan observed as they prepared to continue their journey. "There's a small creek about 10 miles ahead where we can camp for the night." "How do you know these trails so well?" Willow asked, curious. A shadow passed over Nathan's features. "Been tracking Holloway for months. He's slippery moves between Sacramento, Angel's Camp, and a few other towns where he has business interests. I've ridden these trails more times than I can count. You're very dedicated to bringing him to justice. Wouldn't you be, if someone killed your family and walked free?" The question hung in the air between them, and Willow thought of Thomas. She had been prepared to marry him out of necessity, had respected and appreciated him, but his death hadn't left the gaping wound that Nathan still clearly carried from his brother's murder. "I would," she said finally. "And I am. If Holloway is behind Thomas's death, I want him to face consequences." Nathan studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Then we're in this together." As they continued riding, the terrain began to change, becoming more rugged. Nathan guided the horse carefully through narrow passes and across shallow streams, always alert for any sign of pursuit or danger. "Wait," he said suddenly in the late afternoon, reining the horse to a halt. "Listen." Willow held her breath, straining to hear whatever had caught Nathan's attention. At first, there was nothing but the rustle of leaves and distant birdsong. Then she heard the faint sound of hoofbeats, several horses moving at speed. "Riders," she whispered. "Coming this way." Nathan quickly guided the horse off the trail and into a dense thicket of trees. "Could be anyone," he said quietly, "but better safe than sorry." They waited in silence, the horse standing obediently still as the sounds grew louder. Through gaps in the foliage, Willow could see 4 men on horseback pass by on the trail below. They were riding hard, their expressions grim beneath dust-covered hats. "Holloway's men," Nathan confirmed in a whisper when the riders had passed. "Recognize the one in front, Jed Parsons, Holloway's right-hand man." "They're heading toward Angel's Camp," Willow realized with a chill. "Do you think they know I'm gone?" "Likely. News travels fast in small towns, but they won't know which direction we've taken." Nathan waited a few minutes longer, then cautiously guided the horse back onto the trail, heading in the opposite direction from the riders. "We'll need to be more careful now," he said, urging the horse to a faster pace. "Take less traveled paths, avoid settlements." Willow nodded, a new determination settling in her chest. She had left Angel's Camp a shocked, grieving bride. Now she was becoming something else, a woman with purpose, with agency in her own story. They rode until dusk, making it to the creek Nathan had mentioned just as the last light faded from the sky. It was a pretty spot, with clean water flowing over smooth stones and a small clearing surrounded by cottonwood trees. "We won't risk a fire tonight," Nathan said as they dismounted. "Cold supper, I'm afraid." "I've had worse," Willow assured him, helping to unsaddle the horse. Her muscles ached from the long day's ride, but she welcomed the physical discomfort as a distraction from darker thoughts. They ate jerky and hardtack in the gathering darkness, speaking little but comfortable in the silence. After the meal, Nathan produced a small flask from his saddlebag. "Whiskey," he explained. "Medicinal purposes mostly, but tonight feels like we could both use a drop." Willow accepted the flask, taking a small sip that burned pleasantly down her throat. "My father let me taste whiskey once," she confided. "Said it was part of my education about the West." Nathan smiled, reclaiming the flask. "Smart man, knowledge is protection out here." "Nathan," Willow began hesitantly, "if we encounter Holloway or his men, what then?" "I'm not afraid to use a gun if necessary, but let's hope it doesn't come to that," Nathan interrupted. "My plan is to avoid confrontation until we reach Sacramento, where the law is on our side." He paused, studying her face in the dim light. "But if it does, I want you to run. Don't wait for me, don't try to help. Just get to safety." I won't abandon you, Willow protested. It's not abandonment, it's strategy, Nathan countered. One of us needs to reach Sacramento alive to testify against Holloway. If I'm delayed, that has to be you. The implication of his words settled heavily between them. Willow wanted to argue further but recognized the logic in his plan. Very well, she agreed reluctantly. But the same applies to you. If I'm the one who's delayed, you must continue to Sacramento. Nathan nodded solemnly. Agreed. They set up their sleeping arrangements, Nathan insisting Willow take the single bedroll while he made do with his saddle blanket and settled in for the night. Despite her exhaustion, Willow found sleep elusive, her mind racing with thoughts of Thomas's murder, Holloway's men, and the uncertain future that awaited her. Nathan, she whispered after a long silence. Are you awake? Yes, came his low reply. Do you think we'll make it to Sacramento? There was a pause before he answered. I do. We have a 3-day head start, knowledge of the terrain, and good reason to succeed. What reason is that? Justice, he said simply. It's a powerful motivator. Willow considered this. Yes, she agreed, but so is survival. That too, Nathan conceded. Get some rest, Willow. Tomorrow will be another long day. She closed her eyes, letting the gentle sound of the creek lull her toward sleep. Just before consciousness slipped away, she realized something surprising despite the danger, despite the grief and uncertainty. She felt more alive than she had in years. There was purpose in this journey and alongside it, an unexpected freedom. Dawn broke gray and misty, a fine drizzle dampening the ground and their spirits as they prepared to continue their journey. Nathan looked concerned as he studied the darkening sky. Rain will make tracking us harder for Holloway's men, he observed, but it'll also slow our progress and make the trails treacherous. Willow pulled her borrowed shawl tighter around her shoulders. We keep going, don't we? We can't afford to wait out the weather. Nathan nodded, impressed by her resolve. We keep going, but we'll need to be careful. Creeks can flood quickly in these hills, and mudslides aren't uncommon. They ate a hasty breakfast of the last dried apples and set out as the rain intensified. Willow was grateful for Nathan's steady presence behind her on the horse, his arms occasionally steadying her when the animal slipped on the increasingly muddy trail. The day passed in wet misery, the rain sometimes easing to a drizzle before returning with renewed vigor. By mid-afternoon, they were both soaked through despite Nathan's oilskin coat, which he had insisted Willow wear over her clothes. There's a line shack about 2 miles ahead, Nathan said, his voice raised over the drumming of rain. Used by cattlemen during the driving season. Should be empty this time of year. Sounds like paradise, Willow replied with chattering teeth. The shack, when they reached it, was indeed empty, a simple one-room structure with a stone fireplace, rough plank walls, and a dirt floor. It smelled of damp wood and old smoke, but to Willow, it was the most welcome sight imaginable. Nathan quickly set about building a fire while Willow wrung water from her skirts and hair. The small space warmed quickly once the fire caught, steam rising from their sodden clothes as they huddled near the flames. We should dry these properly, Nathan said after a while, gesturing to their wet garments. Otherwise, we risk falling ill, and we can't afford that kind of delay. Willow nodded, though a blush crept into her cheeks at the implications. I'll turn my back while you change, she suggested. Then you can do the same for me. Nathan agreed, his expression carefully neutral as he turned away. Willow quickly removed her wet clothes, keeping only her undergarments, and wrapped herself in a rough blanket she'd found on a shelf. They arranged their outer clothing on improvised drying racks near the fire, then sat on opposite sides of the hearth, the crackling flames the only sound in the small space. You've been very kind, Willow said after a while, breaking the slightly awkward silence. Most men would have left a woman to her fate rather than take on this kind of responsibility. Nathan poked at the fire with a stick. My mother raised me to believe that character is defined by how we treat those who need help, not by how we benefit from others. She sounds like a remarkable woman. She was. A soft smile touched his lips. Came from Boston originally, a schoolteacher who married my father against her family's wishes and followed him west, never complained even when life got hard. My mother was the opposite, Willow offered. Born in a mining camp, daughter of 49ers, she knew no other life but the West. She paused, memories flooding back. She died of fever when I was 3. I barely remember her, just the sound of her singing sometimes. Nathan's eyes met hers across the fire, understanding in their depths. Loss shapes us, doesn't it? Makes us who we are. Yes, Willow agreed softly, but so do our choices afterward. The rain continued through the night, drumming on the shack's roof as they talked. Nathan shared stories of his ranch, of cattle drives and the business of raising beef for the growing populations of California's cities. Willow told him about her education, unusual for a girl in the mining towns, and her father's determination that she would have options beyond marriage. "He sounds progressive for his time," Nathan observed. Said he'd seen too many women trapped in bad situations because they had no way to support themselves. Willow stared into the fire. "That's why I feel so angry about Thomas. Not just his death, but that I was marrying him out of necessity rather than choice." "There's no shame in doing what you must to survive," Nathan said gently. "No," Willow agreed, "but there's no pride in it either." As night deepened, they arranged their sleeping areas on opposite sides of the hearth, the fire between them providing both warmth and a symbolic boundary. Despite the modest accommodations, Willow felt safer than she had in months. "Nathan," she said as sleep began to claim her. "Thank you for finding me on the road yesterday. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't." Through half-closed eyes, she saw him smile. "Maybe it was fate," he suggested, "or just good timing." "Either way," Willow murmured, "I'm grateful." Morning brought clearing skies and renewed determination. Their clothes, now dry if somewhat stiff, felt like luxury after the previous day's sodden discomfort. They set out early, Nathan guiding the horse carefully along trails still muddy from the rain. "We're making good time despite the weather," he said as they paused at midday to rest the horse. "Should reach Sacramento late tomorrow if all goes well." Willow nodded, scanning the horizon out of habit. The rain had washed away any tracks Holloway's men might have left, but the same would be true of their own trail. It was impossible to know how close pursuit might be. "What happens when we reach Sacramento?" she asked, voicing the question that had been troubling her. "Will they believe us?" A bounty hunter and a woman who fled her fiancé's murder scene. Nathan's expression turned serious. "There's a U.S. Marshal there, James Cortland, who's been building a case against Holloway for months. He has witnesses to multiple crimes, including my brother's murder. Your testimony would strengthen the case considerably. And then, after we've given our statements, then justice takes its course," Nathan said simply. "Holloway will stand trial, and with sufficient evidence, he'll hang." Willow shivered despite the warm afternoon sun. "And what about us?" "What happens to us afterward?" Nathan hesitated, something shifting in his gaze as he looked at her. "That depends, I suppose, on what you want to happen." The moment hung between them, laden with unspoken possibilities. Willow felt her heartbeat quicken, aware that something fundamental had changed in their relationship over the past 2 days. This was no longer simply about escaping danger or seeking justice. There was a connection forming that neither had anticipated. "I haven't thought that far ahead," she said finally, though it wasn't entirely true. She had been thinking about it, wondering what life might be like beyond the immediate crisis. Nathan nodded, accepting her answer without pressing further. "We should keep moving," he said, helping her back onto the horse. They rode in companionable silence for several miles, the landscape gradually changing as they descended from the foothills toward the Sacramento Valley. The trees thinned, giving way to rolling grasslands dotted with occasional oak groves. Late in the afternoon, as they were approaching a narrow ravine that would provide a shortcut through the next ridge, Nathan suddenly reined the horse to a halt. "What is it?" Willow asked, sensing his tension. "Not sure," he murmured, scanning the terrain ahead. "Something doesn't feel right." Willow followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual, just the ravine entrance framed by rock outcroppings and scattered manzanita bushes. "An animal, perhaps?" Nathan shook his head slightly. "Maybe." But he broke off as a glint of metal caught the sunlight from behind one of the rocks. "Down!" he shouted, yanking Willow from the saddle as a shot rang out, the bullet whistling past where they had been seated moments before. They hit the ground hard, Nathan twisting to absorb the impact and protect Willow with his body. The horse reared in panic, then bolted back the way they had come. "Ambush," Nathan hissed, drawing his revolver and pulling Willow behind the shelter of a fallen tree. "Stay down." More shots followed, kicking up dirt around their position. Willow pressed herself against the ground, heart hammering in her chest. "Holloway's men," she whispered. "Must be, they've gotten ahead of us somehow." Nathan peered cautiously over the log, then ducked as another bullet splintered bark near his head. "I count 3 of them, using the rocks for cover." "What do? We can't stay here, they'll flank us eventually." Nathan nodded grimly. "I need to draw their fire. When I do, I want you to run for those trees to our left. There's a stream beyond them, follow it north, and it will eventually lead to the main road to Sacramento." "I told you, I won't abandon you," Willow protested. "And I told you, one of us needs to reach Sacramento," Nathan countered firmly. "This isn't a discussion, Willow. Sacramento is less than a day's journey on foot if you follow that stream. You can make it." Before she could argue further, Nathan reached into his boot and withdrew a small derringer. "Take this. 2 shots, make them count if you need to." Willow accepted the weapon, her hands steady despite her fear. "Nathan, please, I'll be right behind you," he promised, though they both knew it might not be true. "On my signal, run and don't look back." He waited until the gunfire paused, likely as their attackers reloaded, then rose slightly and fired 3 rapid shots toward the rocks. "Now," he shouted. Willow ran, bent low, her heart in her throat as bullets kicked up dirt around her feet. She reached the tree line and plunged into the undergrowth, the small derringer clutched tightly in her hand. Behind her, Nathan's revolver continued to fire, covering her escape. She wanted desperately to look back, to make sure he was following, but forced herself to keep moving, pushing through brush and low branches until she reached the promised stream. Only then did she pause, gasping for breath, and turn to look the way she had come. The gunfire had stopped. In the eerie silence that followed, Willow strained to hear any sign of pursuit or, more hopefully, Nathan's approach. Nothing but the gentle gurgle of the stream and distant birdsong reached her ears. Indecision tore at her. Should she wait, go back, continue to Sacramento as Nathan had instructed? The thought of leaving him to face Holloway's men alone was unbearable, yet she knew returning might waste the chance at escape he had purchased with his own safety. With a deep breath, Willow made her decision. She would follow the stream north for half an hour. If Nathan hadn't caught up by then, she would find a place to hide and wait until nightfall. Under cover of darkness, she could return to the ravine and search for him or continue to Sacramento if necessary. The half-hour passed with agonizing slowness, each step taking her farther from Nathan yet potentially closer to help. When she judged the time was up, Willow found a dense thicket beside the stream where she could conceal herself while maintaining a view of the way she had come. As dusk gathered, turning the world to shadows, Willow's hope began to fade. If Nathan had escaped, surely he would have followed her trail by now. The alternative was too painful to contemplate. Night fell completely, the forest around her filled with the sounds of nocturnal creatures stirring. Willow clutched the derringer tighter, startling at every crack of a twig or rustle of leaves. She had just decided to wait until first light before making her next move when a soft, deliberate whistle reached her ears. It was a simple 3-note pattern, the same one Nathan had used earlier that day to call his horse back after they'd stopped to rest. Hope surged through her, but caution kept her silent. It could be a trap. The whistle came again, closer now, followed by a whispered, "Willow, are you there?" "Nathan," she breathed, hardly daring to believe it. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, moving toward her position. Willow raised the derringer, finger poised near the trigger, until the moonlight revealed Nathan's familiar silhouette. "It's me," he confirmed quietly. "You can lower the gun." Willow scrambled from her hiding place, relief making her dizzy. "I thought," she began, then stopped as Nathan stepped fully into a patch of moonlight. Blood stained his left shirt sleeve and a fresh bruise darkened his jaw. "You're hurt." "Just a graze," he assured her, though the tightness around his eyes suggested more pain than he was admitting. "We need to keep moving. I lost 2 of them, but the third is still tracking us." "Let me see your arm first," Willow insisted, already tearing a strip from her petticoat. A graze can still bleed enough to leave a trail. Nathan submitted to her ministrations with reluctant grace, wincing slightly as she bound the wound. "You've done this before," he observed. "Mining camps are dangerous places," Willow replied, securing the makeshift bandage. "Father believed in practical education. Your father would be proud of you," Nathan said softly. "You've shown more courage these past days than most men I've known." The simple praise warmed Willow more than it should have, given their desperate circumstances. "What happened back there?" she asked as they began following the stream northward. "After I ran," Nathan's expression hardened. "I recognized one of them, Davis, one of Holloway's hired guns. They tried to flank me, but I managed to wound one and drive the others back. Then I circled around to follow you." "And the third man is still following us." "Yes, Davis, he's persistent, I'll give him that." Nathan's hand rested on his gun belt. "But we have a good lead, and the darkness works in our favor." They walked through the night, staying close to the stream but under the cover of trees where possible. Willow's feet ached in her thin shoes, unsuited for such terrain, but she made no complaint. Every step took them closer to Sacramento, to safety, to justice. Near dawn, they reached a point where the stream widened, becoming too deep to wade easily. Nathan studied their surroundings, then pointed to a ridge visible in the growing light. "If we climb that, we should be able to see the Sacramento Valley," he said. "From there, it's perhaps 6 hours' walk to the city." The ridge was steep, the climb challenging after their night of walking. Willow's muscles protested each step, but determination drove her forward. Nathan stayed close, occasionally offering a hand over particularly difficult sections, his touch lingering a moment longer than strictly necessary. When they finally reached the top, the view took Willow's breath away. The vast Sacramento Valley spread before them, morning mist clinging to the river that wound through its center. In the distance, barely visible, were the buildings of Sacramento City. "We made it," she whispered, tears of relief and exhaustion pricking at her eyes. Nathan stood beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. "Not quite yet," he cautioned, "but close." They had just started to descend the other side of the ridge when a voice called from below, "That's far enough, Xavier." They froze, Nathan instinctively pushing Willow behind him as they spotted Davis climbing the slope toward them, rifle in hand. The man was disheveled, his face scratched from pushing through brush, but his weapon was steady as he aimed it at Nathan's chest. "Holloway wants a word with you and the lady," Davis continued, stopping about 20 yards downslope. "Drop your gun and come quietly." "Not going to happen, Davis," Nathan replied calmly, though Willow could feel the tension radiating from him. "You know Holloway's just going to kill us both." Davis shrugged. "Not my concern, I get paid either way." His gaze shifted to Willow. "Though I might suggest to the boss that the lady could be useful before she joins her fiancé." The crude threat made Willow's blood run cold, but it also ignited something fierce within her. She still had the derringer Nathan had given her, hidden in the pocket of her skirt, if she could create a distraction. "Nathan," she whispered, "when I move, be ready." Before he could respond, Willow stepped out from behind him, her hands visible and empty. "Mr. Davis," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. "I understand you're just doing your job, but surely you can see this situation is untenable." Davis frowned, momentarily confused by her formal language and apparent willingness to negotiate. "Madam, I don't much care what's untenable." "You're coming with me." "Am I?" Willow took a small step forward, drawing his attention fully to her. "Because from where I'm standing, you have one rifle against two opponents on higher ground. Even if you shoot one of us, the other will reach you before you can reload." Davis's expression darkened. "Don't test me, lady." "I'm simply stating facts," Willow continued, taking another step that positioned her slightly to the side, giving Nathan a clearer line if he needed to draw. "Holloway sent 3 men to capture or kill us, and you're the only one left. Does that suggest he values your life particularly highly?" The doubt that flickered across Davis's face was exactly what Willow had been hoping for. In that moment of uncertainty, she reached into her pocket and drew the derringer, firing in one swift motion. The small gun wasn't accurate at such a distance, but it didn't need to be. The shot went wide but startled Davis enough that his own shot went high as Nathan drew and fired in almost the same instant. Nathan's bullet found its mark, striking Davis in the shoulder and spinning him around. The rifle fell from his hands as he stumbled backward, losing his footing on the steep slope and tumbling several yards before coming to rest against a boulder, unconscious or worse. "Willow," Nathan was at her side instantly, checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, the derringer still clutched in her trembling hand. "No, did you? Is he wounded, not dead?" Nathan confirmed after a quick check of the fallen man, "though that fall might have done more damage than my bullet." He looked at Willow with new respect mingling with concern. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen." "Perhaps both," Willow admitted, her bravado fading now that the danger had passed. "I couldn't bear the thought of him taking us to Holloway." Nathan's expression softened. He reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "You continue to surprise me, Willow Crawford." The moment stretched between them, the world narrowing to just the two of them on the ridge atop, the morning sun painting everything in gold. Willow felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by a force as inevitable as gravity. A groan from Davis broke the spell. Nathan stepped back, though reluctance was clear in his eyes. "We should tie him up and continue to Sacramento," he said, his voice rough. "Marshal Cortland will want to question him." Willow nodded, the practical matters at hand helping her regain her composure. They used Davis's own belt and bandana to secure him, then continued their descent, staying alert for any sign of further pursuit. By mid-afternoon, exhausted but triumphant, they reached the outskirts of Sacramento. The city was larger than Willow had imagined, bustling with activity and noise after their days in the wilderness. Nathan led her directly to the U.S. Marshal's office, a solid brick building near the courthouse. Marshal James Cortland was a lean, weathered man with shrewd eyes and a reputation for incorruptibility. He listened intently as Nathan and Willow recounted their stories: Nathan's pursuit of Holloway after his brother's murder, Willow's experience at the church in Angel's Camp, and their journey to Sacramento. "We've been building a case against Victor Holloway for months," Cortland confirmed when they had finished. "Murder, extortion, fraud. He's got his fingers in all sorts of dirty business across 3 counties. Your testimonies could be the final pieces we need." "Davis is still up on that ridge," Nathan added. "Wounded but alive last we saw him. He could provide additional evidence if you can get to him before Holloway's other men do." Cortland nodded, already calling for deputies. "We'll send a team right away. In the meantime, you two need rest and protection. There's a hotel across the street where we put witnesses. I'll have deputies posted outside your rooms." The prospect of safety, of clean beds and hot food was overwhelming after the past 3 days. As they followed a deputy to the hotel, Willow found herself swaying slightly with exhaustion. "Just a little farther," Nathan murmured, his hand steadying her elbow. "You've been so strong, Willow, just a little longer." The hotel was modest but clean, with separate rooms arranged for each of them. After brief, blissful baths and changes into borrowed clothes, they met for dinner in the small hotel restaurant, deputies discreetly positioned nearby. "It feels strange," Willow confessed over plates of hot beef stew and fresh bread, "to be sitting at a proper table, eating with utensils after the past days." Nathan smiled, though fatigue lined his face. "I keep expecting to hear gunshots or need to run at any moment." "Do you think it's really over? Will Holloway be arrested?" "Marshal Cortland is good at his job," Nathan assured her. "With our testimonies and whatever they get from Davis, plus the evidence they've already gathered, Holloway's days of freedom are numbered." They ate in comfortable silence for a while, both too tired for much conversation. As they finished their meal, Nathan reached across the table, his fingers lightly touching hers. "What will you do now, Willow?" he asked softly. "After all this is settled." She considered the question. 3 days ago, her future had seemed set: marriage to Thomas, a life of respectable security in Angel's Camp. Now, possibilities stretched before her like the open valley they had seen from the ridge. "I don't know," she admitted. "I have no home to return to, no family left." She looked up, meeting his gaze. What about you? Will you go back to your ranch? Something flickered in Nathan's eyes, hope, perhaps, or uncertainty. I could, he said slowly. It's been well managed in my absence, but I've been thinking. Yes, Willow prompted when he hesitated. The ranch is large, prosperous, too much for one man alone. Nathan's fingers curled around hers. It might benefit from someone with a good head for figures, someone who could help with the accounts, perhaps develop new aspects of the business. Willow's heart quickened. Are you offering me employment, Mr. Xavier? A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. I'm suggesting a possibility, Miss Crawford, one of many you might consider. The warmth in his eyes suggested there might be more to this possibility than mere employment, but neither was ready to speak it aloud. Not yet. Too much had happened too quickly. They needed time. I'll consider it, Willow said, returning his smile, among other possibilities. The next week passed in a blur of depositions, statements, and meetings with prosecutors. 4 days after their arrival, Marshal Cortland brought news that Victor Holloway had been arrested at his Sacramento office, along with several of his associates. Davis, recovered from the ridge and treated for his wounds, had turned state's evidence, providing details of numerous crimes in exchange for leniency. It's really over, Willow said in wonder when Nathan brought her the news. They were sitting in the hotel garden, a rare moment of peace amid the legal proceedings. Thomas will have justice. Your brother, too. Nathan nodded, his expression solemn yet relieved. William would be satisfied. He always believed the law would prevail, given enough evidence and honest men to enforce it. And what about you? Are you satisfied? Nathan considered the question. Justice was what I sought when I began tracking Holloway, he said slowly. But somewhere along the way, I found something I wasn't looking for. His eyes met hers, direct and honest. Someone I wasn't looking for. Willow's breath caught. They had been careful in the days since reaching Sacramento, maintaining a proper distance, despite the connection that had formed between them on the trail. Neither had spoken of the moment on the ridge, or the possibilities Nathan had hinted at during dinner that first night. Nathan, she began, uncertain what to say. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but sure. I know it's too soon. You're still grieving Thomas, still processing everything that's happened, and we've known each other less than 2 weeks under the most extreme circumstances. Yes, Willow agreed softly, all of that is true. But I also know that life can change in an instant, a gunshot in a church, a chance meeting on a dusty road. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I don't want to waste time pretending I don't feel what I feel. And what do you feel? Willow asked, her heart racing. That meeting you was the most fortunate accident of my life, Nathan said simply. That you're the bravest, most remarkable woman I've ever known, that I'd like to see what might grow between us, given time and normal circumstances. Willow looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, honest, open, hopeful. She thought of Thomas, of the life she'd nearly had, and realized with surprise that the grief she felt was not for love lost, but for a life unlived, for choices made from necessity rather than desire. I'd like that too, she admitted, to see what might grow, but you're right, we need time. And I need to find my own way, make my own choices now that I have options again. Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. The ranch offer stands as employment, nothing more, unless someday you want it to be more. But I'd understand if you chose a different path entirely. Marshal Cortland found them there in the garden, still holding hands though they moved apart slightly at his approach. If he noticed, he gave no sign beyond a slight smile. I have news, he announced. The circuit judge has agreed to hold preliminary hearings for Holloway next week. After that, assuming the evidence is deemed sufficient, he'll be bound over for trial in the Superior Court. That's wonderful news, Willow said. Indeed, and there's more. Cortland handed her a folded document. This arrived from Angel's camp this morning. It seems your late fiancé left a will naming you as his sole beneficiary. The general store and all his property are legally yours, Miss Crawford. Willow stared at the document in shock. I had no idea, she murmured. We never discussed such matters. It's fairly common for a man to make provisions for his intended bride, Cortland explained, especially one without other family. The town council is asking when you might return to claim your inheritance. Nathan watched her carefully, his expression neutral though a shadow of something disappointment, perhaps, crossed his features. "That's fortunate news," he said. "It gives you options." Willow nodded slowly, still processing this unexpected development. A store of her own, independence, a place in the community she'd known for years. It was more than she could have hoped for a week ago. "I'll need to think about it," she told Cortland. "There are considerations." The marshal nodded, understanding. "Of course, take your time. The property isn't going anywhere." After he left, silence settled between Willow and Nathan, the document lying between them like a barrier suddenly erected. "You should go back," Nathan said finally, his voice carefully even. "It's a good opportunity. Security, respect, independence, everything a woman needs in these times." Willow studied his face, reading the conflict there. "Is that what you truly think I should do?" Nathan hesitated, then sighed. "What I think doesn't matter, Willow. What matters is what you want. What will make you happy and fulfilled. And if I'm not sure what that is yet, then you take the time to figure it out." He reached for her hand again, squeezing it gently. "Just know that whatever you decide, you have a friend in me, always, friend." The word was both comfort and disappointment. Willow squeezed his hand in return, grateful for his understanding even as she wrestled with her own confused feelings. That night, alone in her hotel room, Willow read Thomas's will by lamplight. It was straightforward and generous, leaving her everything with no conditions attached. A note from the town lawyer informed her that the store was being managed temporarily by Mrs. Peterson, but decisions about its future awaited Willow's return to Angel's Camp. The place where she'd nearly married a man she didn't love. The place where she'd walked away from his murder, a blood-stained bride fleeing down a dusty road. Could she really go back there and build a life amid such memories? Yet it was also the place where she'd grown up, where her father was buried, where she had friends and connections. The store would provide income and purpose, independence in a world where women had few opportunities for such things. As dawn broke, Willow made her decision. She dressed carefully in the new clothes Marshal Cortland had arranged for her, a simple blue dress, practical but becoming, and went to find Nathan. He was in the hotel restaurant, nursing a cup of coffee with the distracted air of a man deep in thought. When he saw her, he stood, a smile warming his features despite the wariness in his eyes. "You look well this morning," he said as she joined him at the table. "I feel well," Willow replied. "I've made some decisions." Nathan nodded, bracing himself. "About Angel's Camp, yes, and other matters." Willow took a deep breath. "I'm going back, Nathan. I need to settle Thomas's affairs, see to the store, make proper arrangements." Though he tried to hide it, disappointment flickered across Nathan's face. "I understand," he said quietly. "It's the sensible choice." "I'm not finished," Willow continued, reaching for his hand across the table. "I'm going back, but not to stay. Just long enough to sell the store and property, make sure Thomas has a proper memorial, and say goodbye to that chapter of my life." Hope kindled in Nathan's eyes. And then I thought I might travel to Stockton," Willow said, her lips curving into a smile. "I hear there's a ranch there that needs someone with a head for figures." The transformation in Nathan's expression was immediate, and profound doubt giving way to joy, wariness to hope. "Are you sure? Angel's Camp could offer you independence, a business of your own." "I've spent my life doing what was expected, what was practical," Willow said thoughtfully. "My father gave me education and skills so I would have choices. Thomas left me property that gives me freedom to make those choices without desperation." She squeezed Nathan's hand. "For the first time, I can choose based on what I want, not just what I need." "And what do you want, Willow Crawford?" Nathan asked softly. "To see what might grow between us," she answered, echoing his words from the garden. "To discover who I am when I'm not defined by necessity or circumstance. To build something new, something of my own choosing." Nathan's smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "I can offer you space to do that," he promised. "Time, independence, respect, no expectations beyond those you set yourself." "That's all I ask," Willow said. For now, the for now hung between them, full of promise and possibility. "When will you leave for Angel's Camp?" Nathan asked. "Tomorrow, if Marshal Cortland agrees. The sooner I settle matters there, the sooner I can begin this new chapter." Willow hesitated, then added, I thought perhaps you might accompany me part of the way. Your ranch is in that direction, after all. Nathan's eyes crinkled with pleasure. I'd be honored, and relieved. Frankly, I'm not entirely convinced all of Holloway's men have been accounted for. Always the protector, Willow teased gently. Always, Nathan agreed, his expression turning serious. But I hope you know that I see your strength clearly, Willow. I don't seek to shield you from life or its challenges, only to stand beside you as you face them. The words warmed her heart more than any passionate declaration could have. This was what had been missing with Thomas, this recognition of her as a whole person, capable and strong, yet welcome to accept support when offered freely. The journey to Angel's Camp was uneventful, almost anticlimactic after their previous adventures. They traveled by stage-coach this time, a luxury that amused them both after their desperate flight through wilderness. Nathan remained vigilant throughout the journey, but no Holloway loyalists appeared to threaten them. The town looked exactly as Willow had left it, yet somehow smaller, less significant. As the stagecoach rolled to a stop outside the hotel, she felt Nathan tense beside her. Are you sure you want to do this alone? He asked quietly. I could stay a few days. Willow shook her head. This part of the journey is mine to make, she said firmly. I need to face these memories, these people, on my own terms. Besides, you have a ranch waiting for you. And a ranch ledger waiting for a skilled accountant, Nathan added with a smile, when you're ready. 2 weeks, Willow promised. That's all I need to settle everything here. Nathan escorted her to the hotel, arranged for her room, and ensured the staff understood she was to be treated with every courtesy. Only when these practical matters were addressed did they face the moment of parting. I'll be counting the days, Nathan said, standing with her in the hotel lobby, reluctant to leave. As will I, Willow assured him. On impulse, she rose on tiptoes and pressed a kiss to his cheek. Safe travels, Nathan Xavier. A hint of color touched his bronzed cheeks. And to you, Willow Crawford, I'll see you in Stockton. After he left, Willow faced the town's curious stares and whispered conversations with newfound confidence. She met with the lawyer, arranged for the store to be sold to Mrs. Peterson's son, who had long worked there, and visited Thomas's grave to pay her respects. Standing before the simple headstone, Willow felt not grief but a quiet sense of closure. I'm sorry for what happened to you, she said softly. You deserved better. But I hope you understand why I can't stay and live the life we planned. It was never truly mine to begin with. The 2 weeks passed quickly, filled with practical tasks and farewells. On her last day in Angel's Camp, Willow visited her father's grave, placing wildflowers beside the weathered marker. I'm starting a new chapter, Father, she told him. One I've chosen freely, with a man who sees me as you did, capable, strong, worthy of respect. I think you would have liked him. The stagecoach to Stockton departed at dawn the next morning. As Angel's Camp faded into the distance behind her, Willow felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Ahead lay uncertainty, yes, but also possibility, a future shaped by choice rather than circumstance. Nathan was waiting when the stagecoach arrived in Stockton, his face breaking into a broad smile as she descended the steps. He looked different, somehow more settled, perhaps, or simply happier. He'd trimmed his beard and wore a clean shirt under his leather vest, small concessions to civilization that touched Willow deeply. Welcome, he said simply, offering his hand to help with her bags. It's good to be here, Willow replied, meaning it with all her heart. The ranch lay about 10 miles outside town, a sprawling property nestled against rolling hills with a view of distant mountains. As they approached in Nathan's wagon, Willow caught her first glimpse of whitewashed buildings gleaming in the afternoon sun. It's beautiful, she breathed, taking in the main house, barn, bunkhouse, and various outbuildings that comprised the Xavier Ranch. It's home, Nathan said quietly. Or it was before William died. Been trying to make it feel that way again. An older woman emerged from the main house as they pulled up, her weathered face breaking into a smile. About time you got back, she called. Was beginning to think you'd forgotten the way, Mrs. Hollister, Nathan introduced as he helped Willow down from the wagon. This is Miss Willow Crawford, the lady I told you about. Willow, this is Mrs. Hollister, who's kept this place running since my mother died. The housekeeper's keen eyes assessed Willow briefly before her smile widened. Pleased to meet you, Miss Crawford. The room's all ready, fresh linens and flowers like Mr. Xavier requested. Thank you, Willow said warmly. And please call me Willow. I've had the small cabin prepared as an office, Nathan explained as he showed Willow around the property. Thought you might like your own space for working on the accounts away from the main house. The cabin was perfect, a single room with large windows, a solid desk, bookshelves, and a comfortable chair. Ledgers were stacked neatly, waiting for her attention. It's wonderful, Willow said, turning to face Nathan in the doorway. You've thought of everything. I want you to be comfortable here, he said simply. To find your place, whatever that means to you. The days settled into a pleasant rhythm. Mornings found Willow in the cabin, reviewing years of ranch accounts, organizing systems, and identifying opportunities for improvement. Afternoons often included rides around the property with Nathan, learning about cattle breeding, water management, and the 100 other details that made a successful ranch. Evenings were her favorite simple meals with Nathan and occasionally the foreman or ranch hands, followed by quiet conversations on the porch as the sun set over the distant mountains. They talked of everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they'd seen, hopes for the future. Nathan never pressed, never presumed, respecting the boundaries Willow had established. Yet as weeks turned to months, those boundaries began to feel less necessary. Willow found herself lingering longer in Nathan's company, finding excuses to seek his opinion on matters that hardly required consultation, watching him when he wasn't aware of her gaze. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching a spectacular sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Nathan turned to her with uncharacteristic hesitation. "Are you happy here, Willow?" he asked quietly. "Truly happy?" She considered the question, giving it the honest reflection it deserved. "Yes," she said finally. "Happier than I've been since my father died, perhaps happier than I've ever been." Relief softened his features. "I'm glad. I've worried sometimes that you might regret selling the store, choosing this life instead." "I've never regretted it," Willow assured him. "This place, this work, it suits me in a way running a general store never would have." "And what about me?" Nathan asked, his voice dropping lower. "Do I suit you, Willow Crawford?" The directness of the question sent a pleasant shiver down Willow's spine. She turned to face him fully, studying the face that had become so dear to her over the past months, the strong jawline, the storm-gray eyes that could flash with determination or soften with tenderness, the mouth that rarely smiled but when it did, transformed his entire countenance. "Yes, Nathan Xavier," she said softly, "you suit me very well indeed." Something like wonder crossed his face. He reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. "I've been careful," he said, "trying to give you time, space, freedom to find your own way here." "I know," Willow said. "And I've appreciated it more than I can say, but I think—" She paused, gathering courage. "I think I've found my way now." Nathan's eyes never left hers as he brought her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "And where does that way lead?" "To you," Willow said simply. "If you'll have me." The words hung in the air between them, honest and unadorned. Nathan set her hand gently in her lap, then rose and knelt before her chair, looking up at her with an expression that made her heart race. "Willow Crawford," he said solemnly, "I've loved you since I watched you walk away from that church alone, head high despite everything you'd lost. I've loved your courage, your intelligence, your determination to shape your own life. I would be the most fortunate of men if you would consent to share that life with me as my wife and partner in all things." Tears pricked at Willow's eyes, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Nathan rose, drawing her to her feet and into his arms. His kiss was gentle at first, then deepening as Willow responded with a passion that surprised them both. When they finally parted, both breathless, the sunset had faded to twilight and the first stars were appearing overhead. "I never thought I'd find this," Nathan confessed, his forehead resting against hers. "After William died, I thought vengeance was all I had left. Then I saw you on that road, looking like you'd walked through hell yet still standing tall, and something changed in me." For me as well, Willow admitted. I was so lost that day, so frightened. You could have been anyone, done anything, and I was vulnerable. But you were kind, respectful, honest, even when honesty meant admitting danger. I want a lifetime of honesty with you, Nathan promised. Partnership in the truest sense. Your mind is as valuable to this ranch as my experience. And our hearts? Willow asked softly. Nathan's smile was tender as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. Our hearts are already entwined, I think. Have been since that first day, though neither of us was ready to admit it then. They were married a month later in Stockton's small church, a simple ceremony attended by ranch hands, neighbors, and a few friends. Marshal Cortland came from Sacramento, bringing news that Victor Holloway had been convicted and sentenced to hang for his crimes. Justice at last, Nathan said quietly after the marshal departed. And a fresh start, Willow added, taking his hand, for both of us. Their wedding night was everything Willow had secretly hoped for but never expected: tender, passionate, a true union of bodies and souls. In Nathan's arms, she found the belonging she had sought all her life. The years that followed brought challenges, as all lives do: drought seasons that threatened the herd, economic downturns that squeezed their finances, the normal frictions that arise when two strong-willed people build a life together. But they faced each obstacle as they had faced Holloway's men side by side, drawing strength from each other. Children came first: a son they named William after Nathan's brother. Then twin daughters, Alice and Emily, who inherited their mother's quick mind and their father's steady determination. The ranch prospered under their joint management, expanding into new ventures that Willow's financial acumen made possible. On their 10th anniversary, Nathan surprised Willow with a gift: the deed to a small mining claim in the hills above the ranch. Your father's legacy, he explained as she opened the document with trembling hands. I tracked it down years ago but waited for the right moment. The claim was abandoned after his death, but it's yours now. Our children should know that part of their heritage too. Tears filled Willow's eyes as she embraced him. You never cease to amaze me, Nathan Xavier. Nor you me, Willow Xavier, he replied, using the name she had taken as her own a decade earlier. That day you walked away from the church alone. I thank God every day that I was the one who met you at that gate. As twilight settled over the ranch, they stood together on the porch where they had pledged their love years before. Their children played in the yard, their laughter rising into the evening air like music. The life they had built together spread before them, not perfect, but real and rich and wholly their own. We've come a long way from that dusty road outside Angel's Camp, Willow observed, leaning against her husband's solid strength. Yes, Nathan agreed, his arm tightening around her waist. But the best journeys are the ones we make together. In the fading light, they shared a kiss that held all the passion of their beginning and all the depth of the years, between a testament to the love that had begun on the day she walked away from the church alone, and he had met her at the gate.